From the PEP Radio Newsroom, this is the morning news for October 28, 2025. These are the stories we are covering at this hour. The Trump administration must release millions of dollars in grants meant to address the shortage of mental health workers in schools, a federal judge ruled Monday. Congress funded the mental health program after the 2022 school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. The grants were intended to help schools hire more counselors, psychologists, and social workers, with a focus on rural and underserved areas of the country. But President Donald Trump's administration opposed diversity considerations used to award the grants and told recipients they wouldn't receive funding past December 2025. The preliminary ruling by Kimberly K. Evanson, a U.S. District Court judge in Seattle, applies only to some grantees in the 16 Democratic-led states that challenged the Education Department's decision. In Madera County, California, for example, the ruling restores roughly $3.8 million. In Marin County, California, it restores $8 million, and the ruling will remain in effect while the case proceeds. Groups that advocate for public schools in Pennsylvania warn that steps to downsize and dismantle the U.S. Department of Education will mean less help for students with disabilities. The Trump administration's changes could severely curtail services for 373,000 students in Pennsylvania. Margie Wakeland, senior attorney for the Education Law Center, said a federal court has temporarily blocked massive layoffs at the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services. While the administration insists it will protect programs for students with disabilities, Wakeland said its actions suggest otherwise. Right now, we have a budget impasse at the federal level and at the state level in Pennsylvania, said Wakeland. Schools are having to take out loans in order to keep the lights on, and that inevitably has an impact on the services that students with disabilities are able to receive. Wakeland said her organization is still hopeful Congress will step in and oppose plans to dismantle the Office of Special Education, since federal oversight is crucial to protect children's civil rights. Wakeland warned that moving special education services out of the Education Department could risk losing the expertise needed to manage funding and resources effectively. She explained that the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, funds for these programs nationwide are managed by the Office of Special Education Programs. The special education law has been in effect since the 1970s, and the Department of Education has been around for about that same amount of time. And they've developed expertise on how to distribute that $15 billion that's for special education funding, but also guidance about how to use those funds consistent with the law. In the meantime, Wakeland said families and educators across Pennsylvania are understandably confused and worried about the future of special education amid the budget and layoff turmoil. So what do we expect for the November election here in Pennsylvania? Well, control of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court hangs in the balance. In statewide elections next week, when voters will cast ballots on judges for the state's 3 highest courts. Voters across the Commonwealth will also vote in municipal elections, including high-profile races in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. State Supreme Court Justices Christine Donahue, Kevin Dougherty, and David Wecht, all Democrats, will appear on the November 4th ballot in a retention election, where voters will decide whether to award the sitting jurists new terms on the High Court. Terms are 10 years, although Donahue must retire in 2027 when she reaches the mandated retirement age of 75. While retention elections are often a quiet affair in Pennsylvania, this year's campaign has been heavily shaped by party politics. Democrats hold a 5-2 majority on the state Supreme Court, but Republicans have mounted a campaign to oust Donahue, Dougherty, and Wecht. If voters decide not to retain a justice for another term, Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro could appoint a temporary replacement subject to confirmation by the Republican-controlled state Senate. A deadlock in the confirmation process could result in a court tied at 2-2 if voters oust all 3 justices this year. An election to fill any vacant seats for 10 full 10-year terms would be held in 2027. Turning to more gruesome news, Pennsylvania State Police are investigating a man's body which was found on Saturday in Westmoreland County. State Police received a 911 call from a local hunter who had discovered a body near a parking lot on state game lands and Loyalhanna Township. The victim was later identified as Robert Friend, age 64. State police said via social media. Friend had no permanent residence but did have ties to the Greensburg area. Police have not said how Friend died, but they are calling his death suspicious. It is suspicious to say the least, said Trooper Steve Lamani. Lamani told KDKA-TV that Friend had no history of arrest with law enforcement and that his manner of death and how he ended up in the woods likely involved foul play. It appears something happened that caused Mr. Friend to be in that location, and it doesn't seem like he was just walking there and fell over from a heart attack, Lamani said. And finally, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro has hit the trail for Abigail Spanberger in Virginia's governor's race. As Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro trotted out to speak to voters Sunday at a community center in this city in southeastern Virginia, the crowd roared and clapped every time he referred to the person he was there to support, Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic nominee for governor. His message wasn't subtle. Shapiro, a prospective 2028 presidential candidate, lauded Spanberger as a compassionate, caring, and well-grounded person who'd act as a freedom fighter and whose leadership would help protect the state from President Donald Trump. She's going to protect your fundamental freedoms. That's where governors matter most. Because right now we've got a president of the United States who's attacking the states, making it harder for you to get ahead, making stuff cost more, and limiting your fundamental freedoms, Shapiro said to loud applause and yells of support. I don't know about you, but I don't want the White House deciding what my freedoms are. I want to keep my freedoms. The best way to do that is with Abigail. And that's the news at this hour. If you are watching our videos on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. PEP Radio is available on the Live 365 app, the PEP Radio page at paequality.com, Roku, and Alexa. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.